It's not what you do, but why you do what you do. We manufacture tires. We're Apollo Tire. Well, I'm glad. But why? Why do you manufacture tires? What's the real reason that you do this? Well, we manufacture transmissions. Okay, that's what you do. Why do you do that? I write books and lecture. That's cool. But why do I write books and lecture? A big noble purpose answers the why. Why you do what you do. There's nobody here who wants to pass away, get buried in a box, and a memorial that says, you know, he wrote books. He made windshields. I mean, he made transmissions. We're all seeking a why in our life. I remember when I was sitting down for a couple of days with the strangest man I've ever interviewed in my life, and some of you have read about him, Phil Knight, who founded Nike. He is a very, very strange man. I had 3 days with him. I was working on an article for the Wall Street Journal. And for 3 days in Portland, Oregon, rainy days in January, black. I mean, he wore sunglasses. Do you know how weird it is to be with somebody for 3 days and never see their eyes? It's just very disconcerting. And so finally, and he was very nice, answered all my questions, but I never got to see his eyes. Finally, at the end of the third day, I'm in his office, and he said, do you have any more questions? I said, yeah, I got one more. He said, what's that? I said, I know how many shares of stock you have because of your annual report, and I know that what the closing price was yesterday, so I know you're worth about $6 billion. I said, my final question is this. What's it like being worth $6 billion? For the first time in 3 days, he took his dark glasses off, put them down, looked at me and said, that is the most stupid, dumb ass question. I hear this a lot when I'm out researching for my books, by the way, okay, that I have ever been asked. And he said, you fool. I mean, he just proceeded to rip me one. He said, you fool. He said, you try to come off in your books as being so cool and getting and understanding everything. You don't understand anything or you wouldn't ask me such a question. I mean, I'm sitting there feeling very threatened. And he said, look, let me tell you something. He said, when I started selling runners, when I started selling running shoes out of the boot of my car, he said, you think I did that to become worth $6 billion, you idiot? He said, let me tell you why I did it. I did it for the thrill of competing, winning, and being better than anyone else. And he said, and that's why we exist as a company. He said, we could have gone into hamburgers, we could have gone into real estate, we could have gone into widgets. We exist to compete, win, and be better than anybody else. The big noble purpose is the non-financial reason for doing what you do. You've seen this in your country over and over and over again. We've seen it in Japan over and over and over again. And we've seen it in the U.S. too much, as 11,000 white-collar criminals were carted off to jail last year. When the only reason you exist is to make money. When you say the only reason I exist is to make money, you're saying something else too. You're saying, and I will do any damn thing I need to do to make it. Because that's the unspoken corollary. When you have a big, noble purpose, you've got another reason than the money for doing something. A big, noble purpose fixes something that is wrong. Now, I don't only want to invoke U.S. companies here, but it's one we've studied carefully and it's one that you will know. It's the world's largest retail organization. It's called Walmart. They'll do about $400 to $450 billion this year. But here's the story you don't know. Sam Walton, I was only 7 in 1963 when he opened up the first Walmart, but a part of the story that most people don't know is that he had been bankrupt twice. In many other countries, he would have been prohibited from starting another company. But he announced that he was going to open the doors on a new store. And people couldn't wait to ask him, Sam, how long is it going to take you to go bankrupt this time, Sam? And Sam said, oh, down south, I won't go bankrupt this time. They'd say, why is that, Sam? I said, well, he said, I'm going to build a store where average folks can buy the same stuff as rich people. Now, maybe none of you were around in 1963, but I'll tell you what, in 1963 in America, average folks couldn't buy the same stuff as rich people. There were no shopping malls. There were no discount stores. There were no strip centers. And he changed that whole paradigm. Do you know they still recite that in their headquarters every day? And they recite that in every store every single day. I mean, we are in the business of providing goods and services to average folks, stuff that they can afford. It's what drives them. A big noble purpose is not the goal. It is never the goal. It is the journey. It is the journey. As Dan D'Amico of Nucor Steel, this man I told you I respect so much, said, Jason, I said, how do you keep doing this? He said, well, Jason, imagine this. He said, myself and my 25,000 coworkers are climbing a mountain every day. And he said, you know what? We don't care if we ever get to the top. We don't need to get to the top because every day we get to experience all this incredible scenery, all these incredible new situations. He said, it is the thrill and it is the love of the journey. It's a journey that we're on. And finally, a big, noble purpose gives meaning to people's lives. And all of you know, and all of you have read, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's very simple. We're going to take care of food, clothing, and shelter. That's what every human animal is going to do first. We're going to take care of food, clothing, and shelter. But once we've taken care of food, clothing, and shelter, all of a sudden, we're looking for something else. We're looking for a sense of fulfillment. As another great author, Studs Terkel, wrote once, he wrote a book titled Working, an 800-page book about work. And here's how he concluded his book. Think about this. He said, the problem with jobs is that jobs aren't big enough for people because jobs do not feed the soul. He said the challenge to enlightened leaders, that would be you, the challenge to enlightened leaders is to make jobs big enough for people so their souls get fed as well. Here's what happens when you take what you do and you turn it into a big, noble purpose. Number one, it provides a reason for everybody to get up and go to work every day. It's a good reason to put your feet on the floor and go do it again. A big, noble purpose creates and maintains the momentum. You don't have to have these meetings where you slam on the table, now go get them, boys and girls, we need more, we need more, we need more. Because it's the big, noble purpose that is driving the achievement. When you turn what you do into a big, noble purpose, it gains alignment within the organization. That was one of the things that all of you mentioned to me on the telephone when we talked. You said the people thing, solving the people problem, getting everybody on the same page. Well, when everybody is sharing this one big, noble purpose, that's what truly gains alignment in the organization. And then finally, having a shared common purpose builds cultures. And in one of the 2 or 3 most important things I'm going to share with you today, it's this. Anything that any of you manufacture, produce, or do, I don't care what it is, whatever any of you manufacture, sell, produce, or do, someday somebody's going to do it better, faster, cheaper than you. And ultimately, everything becomes commoditized, and the marketplace will ultimately set the price. The only thing that any organization can ever have, because guess what? They'll do it better, faster, cheaper than you. They can steal your people, steal your marketing, steal your advertising, steal your supply chain secrets. But there's only one thing that nobody can take from you, and that is the culture of the organization. The number one responsibility of the leader is to determine what the culture is going to be and move that culture throughout the organization. That is the number one responsibility of the leader, but I'll tell you this. If that culture is not the one that you want to have built, or if you don't spend a lot of your time building the culture that you want, you will still have a culture. But sadly, the culture that you will have is everybody looking out for themselves. Every organization will get to the culture they deserve. It'll either be the culture that they want, and they relentlessly move through the organization, or it's the culture that will win by default, where everybody is only interested in taking care of themselves. The right culture is the only, at the end of the day, competitive